Going live. Got the yellow light. We look live. I feel live. I'm alive. It's always a good place to start. Monday night, January 15, 2015. This is Random Excess. You're here on Random Thoughts with Random Excess, Random in Dutch. My ever-present co-host, Shane Schultz from Serenely Speaking. We call him Dutch. You can call him Shane. Just don't call him late for dinner. We had a great show last night. We went 90 minutes, our Sunday night interview show. It was interview with Shane, talking about kind of his story. How did he get here? If you tuned in last Sunday, you would have heard my story, but you would have not because we didn't record it. Went through the whole thing and never pressed the record button. So tonight, you have to speak up. You got to speak up.
You never heard of sign language?
No, I don't like sign language. Nothing against deaf people. They're the loveliest people in the world.
Wayne, you need to turn off the big speaker.
There we go. So we did that last night. So check it out, episode 3.0, Speaking Serenely with Shane Schultz from Serenely Speaking. 90 minutes, you'll learn everything you need. You won't learn everything you need to know about Shane. Like probably everything you need to know. That's true. Not everything there is to know, but everything you need to know.
Wait a minute. You mean we're not doing part 2 tonight?
No. Your job tonight is to be quiet.
That's fine.
There we go. And look good. There we go. That's Shane. He's just going to sit there and look good, and that's it. Now we can get back to the show.
This is your show.
More kind of off, still not quite back on my schedule. As we talked about last night, big fire in the neighborhood a couple of days ago, Sunday night, or early Sunday morning, Saturday night. We're up all night long. A bunch of houses burned down, a couple doors down. At least they were severely damaged to the point that we heard today that 3 of the houses are going to have to be demolished. It's like 2 doors down, starting about 2 or 3 doors down. Then half the block is going to get taken out. Suspected arson. I guess we got an arsonist in Troy, the Troy arsonist. There has been over the last year or so, a lot of vacant buildings have been going up, and this started in a vacant house, and then it spread to the houses on either side, which were occupied, and complete losses, all 3 homes. And then a 4th house, which is also vacant, looks like that's some damage. And then we just had smoke here in our house. We weren't evacuated, but we had to get ready to evacuate. So we meant getting up, getting dressed, staying alert. About 6 o'clock, between 5:30 and 6, we got the all clear, go back to bed. What did that mean? My sleep schedule was way off, which meant I slept a lot Sunday afternoon, but then I was up late. Partly amped up from doing the show. We watched half of it last night. We did actually, full disclosure, did not watch the whole thing last night after we taped it. We normally watch the whole episode after we tape it. We got about halfway through, and we didn't watch it yet. So, I don't know. We're going to get to it. We're going to watch that second half. I know it's really good. First half, I'll tell you, is really good. I mean, I know the whole thing's good because I was there. But first half, we watched it, really good. So watch that. If you have to watch it in bits and pieces, maybe 30-minute segments. That's a good thing. You can do that. If you have 90 minutes, actually about 100 minutes, it's 98 minutes. You can watch it from start to finish.
We're actually going to break it up. So, so that's going to be on your site and break it down into 3 30-minute cycles.
Yeah, we're probably going to do that because but it was really good. We didn't want to cut it at 60 minutes. We were going really well last night, so we just thought, hey, it's going to go as long as it takes, and that's part of what we do here on Random Thoughts. We want to do 20 minutes a night with an hour on Sundays, and we've been doing like 40 minutes. And tonight, I think I got 40 minutes just looking at this. I don't know if you could tell there from looking at the screen. I got a bunch of tabs open above the Random Thoughts page there because I've got some things I want to kind of tab through and talk about each one. And again, what I like to talk about is not necessarily the stories that I'm going to be talking about, but what the stories make me think about and why the stories speak to me. And maybe, get a conversation going about the stories, not necessarily, covering the stories. See our Facebook page. The stories are there. So each day, if you subscribe, become a liker. We have 24 likes on the page. I was going to mention this each night, but it's always 24. So no one knew was liking it, so I haven't been updating it. But share the page, share the stories. Don't be afraid to come on and comment. We enjoy that. And then we also have our Facebook, which I'll get to later. All the posts here go automatically to Facebook, but then there's also content on Facebook, which is not available on the Facebook on the Facebook page. There's content on Twitter, not available on the Facebook page, and not also not available in the show. So to get full content, you need to be watching the videos, coming to the Facebook page, and going to Twitter, and then also subscribing to our paid service. Oh no, we don't have the paid service yet. Okay, but there is a lot of things you can do if you enjoy the show. Following on Twitter is just as simple as just giving Random Access a follow. You don't have to do anything other than that. So give us a follow. We have about 960 followers. Most of those are maybe years old. I've been on Twitter for several years, and probably a lot of dead accounts on there. People who just don't go on Twitter anymore. But some are probably active. I mean, I do get some occasional retweets and favorites and stuff like that. So there are people out there listening, and some Twitter conversations going on. So that's sort of the introduction. I think we are ready to get started. Think about what were the random thoughts that are going on today. Oh, I know. Well, let's just make sure. I probably should have flipped over to this earlier, but Arisen Strength does have its Facebook page also. This was Shane was talking about. This is his show. It's going to be starting on Thursday night, and that was one of the things we talked about last night. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk to Shane was to sort of get documented who Shane is and what is Shane's story, so that when he's doing this Arisen Strength, we have a little bit more insight behind his motivation for doing it. The deep motivation, not just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back or the last thing that made him do it, but that whole journey that got him from Shane as a young man to Shane doing Arisen Strength as a weekly show. And so, follow Arisen Strength. You'll be able to follow the videos. You'll be able to see them live. You'll be able to do, interact with them like you do here. It's just another opportunity, and spread the word. I mean, there's evolution requires a certain amount of sharing. Learn, improve, share. The big part of share there. Performance, feedback, revision. We need the feedback and the sharing. There's got to be an exchange, and then things will spread, and then evolve and improve. So that's kind of what's going on there. So let's see, what else was the next thing that I wanted to really talk about here. There's this great website. It started out, I don't know, it started very small. I think they started out on Twitter, but maybe it started out on Facebook. But now it's a big thing. It's IFL Science, which is I fucking love science, but and they just call it IFL Science because people got tired of hearing all the complaints from people going like, oh, why do you have to keep saying fucking? Why do you have to keep saying fucking? Well, that's the name of the site. I fucking love science. But IFL Science is the website. They actually have their own website now. They didn't used to when they first started. It just started with this thing. This woman, I think she's from England. We'll just say she's from England. Doesn't really matter where she's from. But she would find science stories that she loved, and she would share them with friends. And then they really liked the stuff that she was picking, so they would share them with their friends and their friends and their friends, and then it just became known as I fucking love science. And then it started getting a hashtag on Twitter, and really got big on Facebook. And then it morphed, and she got the fan page going on Facebook, and then got so many viewers that when she would find a story that she liked, and then sort of send it out on Facebook, kind of like what I do, it would crash the sites. It would crash big sites even, because it would be so many people. But certainly small sites could not take it. And she was finding those small little stories that people like to see. So what she ended up having to do is create her own website and rehosting the content that she wants to link to. So you don't necessarily link directly to the content. You get a mirror of the content because she just want to bring down those sites because the sites were crashing and it was really not becoming useful. It also gives her a way to repackage the articles and the stuff, put little funny graphics, have it archived properly with categories and labels. And this was a story here. So that's IFL Science. Just to give you a little background on it, and I love it, and I love watching it grow to where it is now. But this is from earlier this year, but it's Brilliant Minds Answer the Question, what scientific idea is ready for retirement? And this ties in to me speaks to me because of the notion of, we ask questions and the universe is always speaking. And when we ask the right questions, we hear the answers that we're looking for. And then there's a lot of things that go into that, our perspective and our emotional state, and and how what our current thinking is. But there is this time when you ask the right questions, you hear the right answer, and then that's on you a little bit to find the right question. And this here is talking about the notion that sometimes we're asking the wrong questions, or sometimes questions get played out. We got to think of new questions to ask, because things that we thought were the right question, as we learn a little bit more, it turns out maybe that's not quite the right question. Maybe we need to be asking a different question. And what they've done, there's this website or organization called edge.com, and they every year ask scientists, what sort of questions should we be asking, and what sort of questions should we stop asking? And then I guess they've been putting together, and I don't know if it was, I guess I don't know all the details exactly because I read it, and it was just like, it's interesting. But they got 700 or maybe 125 surveys or something where they contacted scientists and got enough back where they were able to put together a book that's going to be coming out later this year, maybe even later this month, but certainly early in the early part of 2015, about this, where they're going to be talking to scientists about what are some of the things that we need to be abandoning and which we be moving towards, because the questions we ask really do inform the answers that we get. That's just what's happening. And when you're not asking the right questions, the answers that you're going to get are going to be horribly distorted, because they're distorted by the fact you asked the wrong question. They're going to be distorted by the fact that you had to filter the answer through your perspective. You had your whatever emotional state you were in. So asking the right questions is like a really, really key beginning. And then there's this one here is about a 3.5 minute video, where they showed little clips of a lot of these famous people you may recognize, people you may not. But they're big names in the scientific field or the field of thought, people who think about scientific questions. The theoretical physicists. The theoretical scientists really are the kind of the modern day philosophers. So these people basically are philosophers, and asking them this question and their sort of their response to it is it's a great little video, and it really resonated with me because there was a lot of ideas in there that I as soon as I heard them, I definitely agreed with. There were a lot of ideas that I had kind of already agreed with before I even saw this, because I recognize this in myself, that I need to start asking, and I think it's important that scientists start asking new questions and abandoning old questions sometimes. One example might be, it was race stuff was a big science in the late 1800s. It was like raceology or something, where they the science of white people and the science of black people, and the questions they asked, and if this was a big thing, especially during slavery, like why do black people make better slaves, kind of thing, and they would do these scientific studies based on it, and maybe quotes and scientific studies, but they were asking these questions and then they were getting answers, but they were probably asking the wrong questions, so their answers were sort of meaningless, as all answers are meaningless with the wrong question. Answers are only meaningful when they're paired with the right question. There is that's going on. So that was a good thing. So I would definitely look that up. I linked to it from our Facebook page, or just see IFL Science, or just kind of think about that yourself. What kind of questions do you think should be being asked? And can you think of what kind of questions should we stop asking? I don't know. It's a nice little thought experiment. So that was that thing. So was another one here. I guess this is kind of related to it here. This is something I think I've talked about a little bit. This is the eyewitness paradox. I don't know, is it paradox or the eyewitness problem. Our memories are just terrible, really. They're really, really bad representations of what really happened. Asking, what do people remember? This is why it's important to write down notes, have a journal, do a daily video like this, even maybe not like this, but maybe more detailed oriented about what you did. Because when you try to recall what you did, a lot of times it's not exactly as accurate as you think it might be. I mean, we're all sure that our memories are crystal clear because they're our memories, and we certainly wouldn't remember things that never happened. Study after study after study after study after study shows that's completely wrong. everything that could possibly go wrong with memory goes wrong with memory. And one of the worst things that goes wrong with memory, this is like one of the most painful things about it in my mind, is the more times you remember something, the more distorted the memory becomes. Because your memory is not like it's not like a photograph that that you kind of look up, and then you pull out and say, oh, look, there's a photograph. I mean, your brain is more like an artist looking at a painting. And every time you recall a memory, it recreates the painting. It's kind of like looking at that painting, and it's repainting it for you, and it's throwing away the old painting, and it's giving you a new painting. So that it's distorted each time, and it's going to be affected by your current perspective, your current emotional state, your clarity of thought. But the problem now is that becomes sort of the new memory. So when you recall your memories in these states, that even has a huge negative impact on your memory later on, so that when things do clear up for you and you get your thinking back and you get your emotions stabilized and your thinking cleared, the damage has already been done on your memories. I mean, you've already distorted them. It's a terrible. I mean, it's a weird thing. It's a terrible thing. It's a strange thing. We don't understand a lot about memory. That we know things about short-term memory. Actually, they call it working memory now. They don't like using short-term or long-term. Some places still use it, but you'll see things like working memory will be like this short-term memory, and then there's other kinds of memory. But then we have like the memory of like facts. What do they call that? We should remember some of these words. Like static memory or syntactic memory or something like that. Whereas it's like, but then you have this other memory of like memory of process. You experiential memory, where you remember the experiences in general, which are like the trajectories. And then there's these the syntactic memory, be almost like the dots along the thing. But those things can all be shifting. You can be remembering different points now, and then that will change the trajectory of your memory. So your entire experience can be shifted because some facts were altered. And there's great experiments where they, I don't know if they're great experiments. Some of these, you have to be really careful when you do these memory experiments, because you are messing with people's memories. We like to define ourselves by our perspective. It's one thing that can define us, and our perspective in many cases is informed by our memories, through experience, and then we shift our perspective based on our experiences, and we tend to start remembering why we did that. And so our memories are really key to defining us, but they're really tenuous at times. And there's a part of this one experiment. They took some college kids, and then with the permission of their parents and with the involvement of their parents, and the college kids knew what was going on, that this was a memory experiment, they talked to the parents like, oh, tell some childhood stories about Shane. And they got some childhood stories about Shane. And then they said, okay. And then they worked with a scientist to doctor up the stories so that it was certainly nothing that ever happened. Maybe fights they got into that never happened, or things that never happened. So there was like things that definitely happened to them as a kid, as far as the parents remember, and then things that did not happen, as far as parents remember. And then they were able to interview the kids and implant these memories. And these kids were remembering, arguments with and fights with, relatives, or, that things that they were involved in, as well as things that they witnessed that never happened. And then they were able to show them after the experiment, what we recorded before that. Here's what we recorded before when we were interviewing your parents. We're going to make you remember the stuff that never happened. and of course, it's this stunning thing where you're watching this. And now just think about that. Think of some memory that you have that you're sure happened. And imagine how you might feel if somebody was playing a tape of your family members talking about it, saying, that was recorded before you revealed this, saying, no, that never happened. In fact, we're going to implant it in his memory. And in the future, he's going to be thinking about this, and he's going to think it really happened. And you're like, man, the Twilight Zone? But that's how suspect memory is.
Sounds like a sci-fi show.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing we got out of the trees and to where we are today with these memories. They are really, really suspect, which makes things like eyewitness testimony to me really, when people are convicted, especially capital offenses or any kind of prison sentences, really, based only on eyewitness testimony. Unless you know the person personally and you saw them do something, it's like you can't, it's really difficult to say, well, this is what I think I saw, when you didn't have any connection to what was going on before. It was like witnessing a raw event that you had no connection to prior. Very little chance that you would have remembered it accurately enough, to my mind, to my way of thinking, to send someone to prison for a long time without any other evidence. Just your word alone. And that's not picking on anybody. That's just the truth of the matter. Not to mention, as I said before, we get people to remember things. Is easy to get a false confession out of somebody. One, it's easy to get a confession out of somebody just to get them to stop. For them just to be stopped interrogating. If you're being interrogated, you'll give a confession just to stop it. That's one thing, and that doesn't even count. But it's possible to get a person to confess to something because you just convinced them that they did it. That can happen too. And so to convict people on like confessions alone or eyewitness testimony alone is basically convicting somebody on memory alone with no evidence. And that's just like convicting somebody on a dream to me. It's like, I had a dream that they did it. Oh, okay, they must have done it because you would have dreamed it wasn't real. It's not much different than that. We need to be working on evidence. We're getting to the point scientifically where we can find evidence. And I'm not saying you throw all that stuff out and never consider it, because if you have some supporting evidence, then that gives weight to it. But you have to be able. If that's all you have, it's really, really difficult, to my mind, to convict somebody on that. So just don't get me on a jury, because I'll definitely bring that up. The other thing that I'll talk about, and I'll get right to you, but I wanted to mention this while it's in my head, jury nullification. That's a beautiful concept, and I should be talking about it a lot more. Jury nullification is this idea that the jury cannot be held responsible for letting somebody go, letting the guilty person go. And what that allows the jury to do, and the reason for this, is the jury can decide that the law, if the law is applied to this particular case, then that would be a greater injustice than not applying the law. So we have to let this person go. That yes, all the evidence shows that technically they committed the murder, blah, 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 blah. But because of the situation, I can't in good conscience convict this person of murder, regardless of the evidence. And so you let them go. And the juries can do that, and they're free to do that. What juries really shouldn't be doing, and they can't do, and the judges will overrule this, is just send somebody to jail because they want to. Well, there's no evidence, but we'll send them to jail anyway. And the judge will say, no, set aside the verdict. But letting somebody go, so if you're ever on a jury and you feel really uncomfortable applying the law in that case, you can argue not to, say we don't have to do this. It's not our job to convict the person or to not convict the person. Our job is to judge, to pass sentence, pass jury, to be a jury, to say, that the law should apply in this case or the law should not apply in this case. That is your job. Your job is not to be a machine for the system. It's to be a human who just makes a decision based on, human type things. All right, but Shane had something, because I was really ranting there for a while, so I'm sure I was triggering a lot.
Well, I mean, you brought us some good things, especially in regards to the memory thing. We've had some instances that in our country as to where, if somebody's wearing a hoodie, there's automatically a judgment that, that they're a criminal, and if they are, in a rainstorm or something, and they look in somebody's window or they slow down at somebody's house, well, the judgment is that they're casing the house, or they have bad intentions or something in that sense. And in some of those instances, there was some horrific results. And I totally agree that you can't throw it all out, because if it collaborates with the evidence, the forensic evidence, then that's something. It's part. It's almost like anything. Like if you tell a joke or something, there's always a little bit of truth in that joke. Whether you intend it or not, we are just made that way. And when it comes to the memory, there's a thing called brainwashing. And it happens. And to where you can totally be told that this memory that you have is not correct, and over a period of time, you start to believe that. And you know, when it comes to police investigations and so forth, there's a number of, now, believe me, I know a number of people, especially, you know, close to me, who are very judgmental. You know, it's like if there's an investigation and somebody does, you know, if they do a confession, so to speak, then they're guilty. Period. Then you come out with all the particulars about that confession, where, you know, they're held, you know, for long periods of time, and you know, then they're, you know, they end up being fatigued to the point as to where they're just about ready to say anything that you want to hear just to get some sort of relief, and not even realize it. You know, I mean, if they were in tip-top shape, and if they were hydrated, and if they were ready, you know, then, you know, they're gonna be able to battle. But, you know, that's the whole point of the matter when it comes to that type of investigation, is that they want you weak. You know, they want that little opening that they can pry, and, you know, in some cases, you know, it's fully within the legalities of the investigation. The police do not have to tell the truth. They can utilize fabricated evidence in order to get you to agree with them that this is the way that things were, or whatever the case may be. So, you know, it's definitely something that needs to be looked into further. I'm not saying that every confession is not true, and I'm not saying that, you know, every memory that we have is distorted by any means, but there's enough evidence to where, you know, it shouldn't be 100%, you know, acted upon.
Right. So, yeah, memory, tricky thing, memory thing. So, you know, just as a small example, like, you know, and maybe it's just because it's little kids, but you're taking a little kid, they're convinced they believe in Santa Claus, you know, and they'll give you the whole, you know, and they have memories of, you know, interacting with Santa Claus too. You know, oh, he took the cookies and the milk, so he must have been. So, you know, these kind of things get really built up in our minds, and then we can carry them for a long time, and then, you know, eventually they might get shattered, but. I mean, it was a great story on NPR. I don't know, great. It was pretty funny. And it was this guy, he grew up in a family. He had brothers and sisters. And his family, his father and his mother and his father's uncles, their aunts were involved. They thought it would be fun to, how long can we carry on the Santa Claus myth, keeping the kids believing in Santa Claus? You know, like a little experiment, their own little experiment. And it wasn't like in a city. They came kind of out in a small town, so they didn't have a lot of neighbors. But I think he was like 15 or 16 before he really stopped. But they had built up also some real perverted Santa Claus myth. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, not perverted, not sexually perverted, but like, you know, Santa Claus was hunting the kids, and it just turned into this. You know, and the kid, he grew up terrified a lot of times because of Santa Claus in the woods. He'd have an uncle dressed up like in a, you know, this horrible Santa Claus outfit in the woods, and he grew up resenting this when it all came out. You know, he resented it. His sister, you know, she kind of took it, you know, as it was funny, and maybe his brother. But it was an NPR story. I never looked it up again, but it was one of those radio things. But hearing this guy tell this story, you know, really, you know, the kind of thing that was resonating with me, it was playing with somebody's memories, and you know, and you know, distorting their perceptions on purpose. You know, we all have distorted perceptions. You know, that's my humility speaking. You know, I have distorted perceptions. You know, let's not go out of our way to distort other people's perceptions. You know, they have a tough enough time as it is. You know, connecting with the universe. You know, witnessing the greatness and the grandness and the truth of the universe. To, you know, hearing the truth of the universe being spoken through their own, you know, distorted perception. They don't need me stepping in front of them, you know, and adding an extra layer of film to their perceptions, or, you know, just damaging it altogether. I mean, that's you know, I don't know, cruel maybe. You know, it's sometimes it seems like it's kind of fun or cute or whatever. You know, but as I think about it more and more over the years, you know, I realize that, you know, wow, perception is a real, it's the thing that separates us. from connecting with the universe. So it's the thing that we have to challenge in order to connect with the universe, to be one with the universe, and all that, or if if you're more theistic and you think you have a personal God, to connect with your God, your perceptions have to be clear. And then it was all the great early scientists and the early scientific efforts for thousands of years was to get closer to God and to understand more about God was through sort of clarity of thought and experiment and trying to understand the universe. There was this real need to connect with the higher power, and then the Buddhists and I think everybody, humans just in general, want to connect with sort of my purpose, my existence. That they have questions. And they would they kind of want to feel the answers. They want, and that takes clarity of perception. That takes challenging your perceptions. It means wiping away the distractions. It takes things like mindfulness and humility and being perceptive. And so you don't need somebody getting in your way, brainwashing you, or you're just constantly just distracting you from that goal. So now I'm getting off my high horse, and that's kind of the random thoughts thing, and it's something that I'll talk about before. And one thing I noticed that I was doing, and I especially noticed it tonight, while Shane was talking, is talking really fast. Not so fast, but I'm talking fast, but and maybe it's hard to catch a lot of what I'm saying. The good news is I'll be repeating myself eventually, probably tomorrow night, the next night. I think there's a continuity of thought. There's a continuity of what I talk about, so that even though I'm talking fast now, when you hear me talking later, it should be feeling familiar. Shane did a great job of slowing it down and talking about it from his perspective, and talk about his interpretation. And I think I might have been going on a limb and say I agree with everything that he said. I definitely agreed in general with what he said. I wasn't paying that much attention because I was over here eating popcorn, but no, I heard what he said, and I agreed. But it was a good thing. He interrupted me just the right time. He slowed it down. He talked about it, and I think he was reiterating, from his own point of view. It certainly wasn't. He wasn't trying to say what I was thinking. He was saying what he was thinking. But I think we kind of agreed a lot on that. So you take what he said and kind of apply it to what I said, and that's about what I said. I just said it a lot faster and harder to understand, and I didn't enunciate. All those good things. That's why I have Shane here. Shane is my clear speaker. He's the one that, even if he doesn't agree with me, he'll no. Shane's here to express his own opinions. All Shane's opinions, I hope, are Shane's, and I'm going to say that they are, at least. And he's under contract to not disagree with me.
I'll say this.
Yes, I have a way of being able to speak. I've been doing it for quite a while, and yes, I do have my own thoughts, but sometimes it takes a mind like yours in order to bring up that subject, in order to be discussed. And some of the most brilliant individuals that I know personally and that are in the history are, they're very eccentric in the way that they communicate, and you just happen to have your own way of doing things, and it's like it doesn't hurt somebody to watch your show a couple times, to get a handle on this. This is our 22nd show, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 22nd show that we've got here, so that's that is a hell of a commitment, and for one thing, and I know where you've been. I know where you were not that long ago, and I know where you are now. And there's a difference, a significant difference, and it's one that is a joy to watch. And and I think that it's fantastic that you're able to utilize that mind of yours to be able to communicate to others, because what it does is it opens up communication. It opens up that perception avenue for another person to look at things differently.
And I was eating popcorn, and now I'm choking on popcorn kernels, popcorn, that skin that comes up. Oh.
And damn well you should if you're not going to listen to it. And
I apologize for coughing into the microphone. Okay. the thing that really started me thinking today about tonight's show, what I want to try and do is kind of see some news stories, and then I want to kind of take a few minutes to think about each news story and then see which ones take me on a thought journey. And one that takes me on a nice long thought journey, I say, oh, that's something I want to talk about. That's kind of how I want to take this show. Wasn't quite doing that maybe at the beginning. I think maybe I was, but I wasn't. But as we do this, as Shane mentioned, we've done this is our 22nd show. This is in a row. We do this every night. This is so it's been a real steady commitment. There's going to be a night where we're not going to be on one night. So that'd be a good time to maybe explain now the numbering. Our Sunday night episodes are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to go like that. And then the weekly episodes, the weekday episodes, and the Saturday are 0.1, 0.2. But they're going to be based on the day number. Like say it's 3.1. All the 0.1s will be Monday episodes. If next week we don't do a Monday episode, there will not be a 4.1. That will just vanish. It means that the Monday episode does not exist. So that'll be how the numbering is going to work. It doesn't make any sense to anybody else, but hey, it makes sense to me.
Network speak, we're blacked out.
Yeah. So, but eventually there's going to be an episode one night. That we're not. It's going to be the first episode that we don't broadcast in this long string of episodes. That's going to be a memorable night, and there won't be a number to correspond to it, so it'll be easy to remember which one it was, how far we went without an episode. Makes me think of it's really kind of a sad thought, but it's along the same lines. There was when you were growing up, you had a primary caretaker, usually your mother, but there was some primary caretaker who would probably pick you up on a daily basis and hold you. And as you got older and bigger, she didn't pick you up as much, or he didn't pick you up as much. But there was probably a time where they picked you up and held you and put you down, and they never picked you up again. Mm-hmm. Think about that. When was the last time your mother picked you up? And will she pick you up again? Probably not. So there was this last time. We have that would be a flip side of the last time. There's going to be a first time we don't do a nightly episode. So maybe I should have told that sad story about people's mothers not picking them up, but
we're not planning on going anywhere. But
things happen, right?
Things happen.
We had a fire here Saturday night. It was Sunday morning. If that had been a different time, we might not have had an episode.
It did bring it to light, that's for sure.
Yeah, so we had to face our own mortality. Okay, well, these thought journeys. Here's a story that really triggered a thought journey for me, and I'm not even gonna be able to take you on it, and it's almost like I'm going to kind of betray some of my. I'm probably not going to be able to talk about this story as much as I want to, short of just telling you what the story is. And I don't want to be a reporter and report stories. I'd like to talk about what they make me think about. But this is a great story because in this story, one of my favorite parts, there's a part where this thing about changing perspective is really important. And so I'll try and say it real fast, and then maybe I'll do it later on in the week. I'll bring the story back and talk about it. But Sweden for a long time had legalized prostitution. And then 1999, they decided they were going to go back to outlawing prostitution. But they were going to do it a little differently than other people, the way it's traditionally done. They were going to make it illegal to be a John, basically, but not to be a prostitute. Or they were going to decriminalize the prostitute part. So they're not going to worry about that part, but they're going to go after the people who actually are the Johns, the people who are buying, and that's who they're going to make. That's where the crime is going to be. And when they did this early on, they got a lot of pushback because they said, "Oh, here you guys, you liberals," and it didn't do anything for the first couple of years. It did nothing. There was no change in anything, and they were kind of shocked and surprised because they're like, "No, we worked this out on paper. It was going to work." And they kind of hit what the problem was. The problem was the police were not on board. Their idea was that women or the prostitutes are the victims in this illegal prostitution, and to go or an illegal prostitution or in the prostitution game. In the game, it's the prostitutes that are the victims, and everybody else is the criminal. So we're going to go after everybody else but the prostitutes. And the police were not on board with that. The police just did not buy that, and so they didn't prosecute the crimes. They weren't arresting people, so the prostitution crime wasn't going down. The illegal sex trade was as big as it was. There were people coming in and out of the state, out of the country. This is Sweden, as well as the other countries around there. But it was a big trade going on, and it wasn't when they recognized that, when they finally said, "Oh, you know what? the police really aren't on board here. They don't share our perspective. We have to change the perspective of the police. We can't just tell them to do this, because that's what we did. We passed the law, said this is your job. They didn't do it because, we all have our perspectives, and our perspective does, at the end of the day, affect our actions, because it's going to drive our emotions and our thoughts, and that's going to lead to our actions. And they couldn't get the police to do this, but through a lot of training and shifting the perspective, letting the police and the police bought into it. The police started realizing that yes, it is the prostitutes that are the victims in the prostitution game, and that they are the victims. Everybody else is the criminal, so it makes sense to go after everybody else and leave the prostitutes alone. And when they've done that, prostitution in Sweden, as well as sex crimes, illegal trafficking, all down like 2/3 to 80%. I don't want to say wiped out, but they used to have like 17,000 sex slaves being brought into the country every year. I don't know how they get these numbers, but this is the numbers they have. And they went from 17,000 a year being brought in to 500. Yeah. 500 is a big number. I'm not going to say that 500 sex slaves is nothing, but when you consider the level of dropping in the problem, it's a terrible way to say it. And I think Obama or Kerry might have got. I think it was Kerry got bitten. I want to get terrorism down to a nuisance level. This is a nuisance level. It doesn't mean that it's okay. It just means that we don't have to devote all our resources to combating this. We can target it, narrowly, but we don't have to have, huge, that's what we do majorly. But when it's big, that's all you're doing. So that's what this, there's a lot more I can say about this, because to me, it made me think about voter ID laws. How is that possible, Wayne? Well, that's a whole other show. So it's a good story, but I would read it. It's a story of how they had to change a law. But even in order to get the law to work, they had to change perspectives of the people who were ultimately responsible for making the arrests. So there was this thing about perception and perspective going on that really spoke to me, that I really, really, really enjoyed. And how am I going to wrap this up here? Talking about Twitter. Of course, we have our RTWRE, Random Thoughts with Random Access hashtag. You can tweet at us, things pop up. You can see this one blue-eyed person just keeps using that hashtag over and over again. But if you guys were live tweeting us during the show with the hashtag, it doesn't have to be to us, just live tweet with that hashtag. It pops up here live. We see it. We'll talk about it, especially if it relates to the show. A lot of this is where a lot of the content that doesn't appear on the Facebook page is. All those tweets you see listed where the hashtag's at the end of the tweet, that is content exclusive to Twitter. When I put the hashtag at the front, that's something that I put on Facebook and on Twitter. Hashtag at the end means it's only on Twitter. It's exclusive Twitter content. So there's plenty of things that you could be missing, plenty of random thoughts that you could be having access to. Like right there in the middle of the page, I see one. The best dreams are filled with random thoughts. Well, and think about that. What do we do for followers? Yesterday we had 959 followers. Right, they'll give you the follower update. Yesterday was 959. Today it's 958. So that's not a good sign.
You did say they died.
Yeah, so followers come and they go. So we give like a little, and then I'm getting my count down here. I'm down to 585 people that I follow. I've been kind of going through my who I follow, who I don't follow, and who I want to see any more of. A lot of names have been moved over to my SCI list. I have a list of basically science tweets here that. Things that are just a little bit more, that's of the extreme left there, which would be like the middle of your screen, but it's the left column of Twitter. So you can follow the Random Access /SCI, and then there's just, instead of following a bunch of people, I follow them for you. And they talk about math, science, physics, biology, politics, some politics as it relates to math, science stuff. It's a pretty diverse group. I try to purposely make it diverse, because sometimes if I only pick out people who appear on my timeline sort of organically, it might be a little bit maybe too many white guys or something like that, which is already a problem in science. It's got too many white guys. So I seek out lots of minorities, women, and put them in there too, so that we can start hearing the voices of people who are in science, who, although they represent a minority of the population, they are still scientific minds with scientific opinions, and as they become a bigger part of the population, those are going to be voices that we're eventually going to hear on a regular basis. We can hear them now because I'm listening for them, and I don't have to worry about trying to listen for the voices of the white men, because they're in there too. So you get a pretty good diverse mix of voices of people in the scientific community. One thing I noticed, maybe it was just me. Maybe I jumped to too quickly to inclusion, but a lot of women in science study insects. I got a lot of female entomologists that are on here, and a lot of that I just don't follow because there's just too many of them. Women love bugs. I don't know. Who knew? But at least women in science. Yeah, so it's the things you learn while I'm watching this show. So we're going to wrap it up here. I think we've gone probably 45, 50 minutes.
45.
Look at that. So it was intended to be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. All right, 45 minutes, and we're going over. As always, we have the Random Access feedback line, or the Random Thoughts feedback line. That's good in the U.S. and Canada, 1-5-189-666-175. Open every day, 3 to 4, 3 to 5 on the weekends, and 11 to midnight after the show. That was 1-5-189-666-175. Give us a call on the feedback line. If you call when the lines aren't open, you can leave a message, and we'll get to your messages. We like your feedback, because performance feedback revision, we can't give you the show that you want or the show that we need to be doing without some feedback. If left to our own devices, who knows where this will end up. But a little bit of extra feedback from external feedback, kind of keep reality checking. I'm a person that really needs a lot of reality checking. Part of my mental illness is way out there. If I'm not careful, I need people to say that you should be doing that way. I can agree or disagree, but at least I have a chance. If nobody stops me, I could end up believing anything and talk about memories and perception and beliefs. I end up locked up in a room for a month because because I start believing things that are just a little too out there, and really believing them. And so just a warning. So do me a favor, give me a call. Save me. I need you to save me. That's our Monday night show, 3.1. The truth is out there. That was the name of the episode. The universe is always speaking, and it's always speaking the truth. So the truth is out there. I just got to hear it. Part of hearing it is, examining my thoughts and perceptions, and I invite you to do the same with your thoughts and your perceptions, because the truth is out there, and we can connect to at least a part of it. Courage, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow night.
Have a good night, folks.
And